The sky above Seoul turned red when the alien ships arrived. They came without warning, blocking out the sun with their massive vessels. People looked up from the streets, their phones dropping from their hands as the enormous crafts cast shadows across the entire city. Commander Thelvex stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring down at the blue and green planet below. His 4 eyes narrowed with disgust as he examined the surface scans. The planet was covered in what his people called chaos zones, thick forests, dense jungles, and wild vegetation that grew without order or control. How could any intelligent species live in such disorder? He activated the communication system, his voice booming across every radio, television, and device on Earth. The translation was perfect, cold, and mocking. Primitive humans. We are the Velkaran Empire. Your world is now ours. We have studied your military capabilities. Your weapons are toys. Your armies are insects. Surrender now, and we will let most of you live as workers. Resist, and we will burn your cities until nothing remains. Thelvex waited for a response. He expected the humans to beg, to negotiate, to offer anything to save themselves. That was what all the other primitive species had done across the galaxy. Instead, there was only silence. The commander's mandibles clicked in annoyance. Perhaps they needed a demonstration. He selected a target on his screen, a military base in the Australian desert. One of the escort ships charged its main cannon. A beam of blue light shot down from orbit, and the base vanished in a flash of heat and light. The explosion could be seen from space. That is your future if you resist, Thelvex announced. You have 12 hours to surrender. Again, silence. Deep in the mountains of South Korea, Captain Lee Tiemann was running through the forest when his radio crackled to life. He had been training his unit in the dense woods near the North Korean border when the aliens arrived. Now, command was calling him back. All special operations units return to base immediately. This is not a drill. Code Black. Tiemann gathered his team. Park Minji, his best sniper, was already packing her rifle. She had been in the middle of a training shot when the sky turned red. Kang Do-yeon, the team's explosives expert, was checking his equipment with quick, practiced movements. Choi Yuna, who handled all their technology and communications, was trying to get clear satellite images of the alien ships. Are those really aliens? Diane asked, looking up at the red sky. Unless someone built ships that big without us knowing. Yes, Minji said quietly. She was always calm, even now. They reached the underground command center within an hour. The base was chaos. Officers were shouting orders, soldiers were preparing weapons. And everyone knew that Earth's military had just become terribly outmatched. General Han stood at the main screen, watching as reports came in from around the world. Australia's base was gone. China had lost 3 cities in orbital strikes. Russia's air force had been destroyed before their planes could even take off. America's Navy watched helplessly as their carriers were melted from space. We cannot fight them in open battle, the general said to the assembled Special Forces officers. Every conventional engagement has been a massacre. They have weapons we cannot match, technology we do not understand, and ships that can destroy us from orbit. Then, what do we do? Someone asked. The general turned to look at them all. His face was tired but determined. We change how we fight. They are coming down to the surface now. Their ground troops are entering cities and open areas. But there is one place they seem to avoid. He pointed at the map, at the vast green areas covering parts of Asia, Africa, and South America. The jungles. Tiemann stepped forward. Sir, are you saying? I'm saying we use what they fear. Their scans show they struggle in dense vegetation. Their sensors do not work well in humidity. Their soldiers are not trained for forest combat. We have something they do not have. We know how to fight in the green hell. Another officer spoke up, Sir, with respect, we are talking about a few thousand special forces troops against an empire that controls multiple planets. Yes, the general said, but they will land their troops. They will send soldiers into our world. And when they do, when they step into our jungles, we will teach them that Earth is not helpless. Over the next 3 days, the Velkaran ground forces landed across the planet. They came in massive dropships, their troops marching out in perfect formation. Their machines were impressive, walking mechs with powerful weapons, hover tanks that glided above the ground, and soldiers in advanced armor that made them look like metal giants dotting the cities. The humans could do nothing. The aliens took over government buildings, food supplies, and power stations. Their weapons cut through concrete and steel like paper. Any resistance was crushed instantly. But when a Velkaran battalion entered the Vietnamese jungle to secure a strategic position, something different happened. The Velkaran commander, a veteran of 12 planetary conquests, looked at the thick green vegetation with contempt. A trivial hunting ground, he told his troops. These forests are inferior combat zones. The humans hide in them because they are too weak to fight properly. Move forward in standard formation. The battalion entered the jungle in neat columns, their sensors scanning ahead. Everything seemed quiet. Too quiet. High in the trees, hidden by leaves and shadows, human eyes watched them. Scouts from 6 different nations had been waiting for 3 days, studying the alien movements, learning their patterns. They did not attack. Not yet. They simply watched and reported back. In his command ship, Thelvax received the report. The jungle battalions are proceeding with minimal resistance, his officer told him. Minimal resistance? Thelvax laughed. There is no resistance, because there is nothing to resist with. These humans are finished. But in a command bunker deep beneath the Korean mountains, Captain Tiemann looked at the map showing alien positions. The Velkaran were spreading their forces, entering the green zones, confident in their superiority. They are walking into our world now, he said quietly to his team. Park Minji checked a rifle one last time. Then let us show them what our world can do. The order came through minutes later. All Special Forces units were being deployed. Not to fight in the open, not to defend cities, but to disappear into the jungles, the forests, the mountains, into every green place on Earth, where the aliens thought they had nothing to fear. The real war was about to begin. The Velkaran soldiers marched through the Vietnamese jungle with growing frustration. What should have been a simple patrol had become a nightmare of discomfort and confusion. Commander Krelvax pulled off his helmet, gasping for air. The humidity was unbearable. His armor's cooling system had failed an hour ago, and sweat poured down his face. Around him, his troops were suffering the same fate. They had conquered ice worlds and desert planets, but this thick, wet heat was something their bodies had never experienced. Sir, the thermal scanners are malfunctioning again, reported one of his soldiers. The scanner screen showed nothing but chaotic heat signatures. Everything was hot in this cursed jungle. Trees, rocks, ground, air, all the same temperature. How were they supposed to find enemies when everything glowed the same on their sensors? Worse, their hover tanks kept sinking. The ground here was not solid. It looked solid, but step on the wrong spot and you would sink into mud and water. They had already lost 2 tanks to hidden marshes. The machines were still down there somewhere, their pilots barely rescued before they drowned in brown water. Krelvax tried to contact the command ship. This is Ground Team 7. We need relief. The environment is hostile, our equipment is failing, and something moved in the trees. Every Velkan weapon pointed upward. They fired into the canopy, blue energy bolts lighting up the jungle. Leaves and branches fell, but there was nothing there. Just shadows and green. What was that? A young soldier asked, his voice shaking. Nothing, Kralvac said. But he did not believe his own words. 300 meters away, hidden in thick undergrowth, Captain Tiemann and his team watched through camouflaged scopes. They had been tracking this alien patrol for 6 hours. They had not fired a single shot yet. "They are scared," Minji whispered. "Look how they move. They jump at shadows." Tiemann nodded. The aliens were used to fighting on their terms, with their technology giving them every advantage. Here, in the green maze of Earth's jungles, all their advantages meant nothing. "Do we engage?" Doyan asked quietly. "Not yet," Tiemann said. "Let the jungle work first." They had learned quickly that the aliens were blind in these conditions. Their advanced sensors could not penetrate the thick vegetation. Their communication systems were disrupted by the trees and moisture. Their weapons were powerful but useless when they could not see their targets. More importantly, they had learned that the Valkyran came from sterile, controlled worlds. They had never dealt with Earth's wildlife, Earth's diseases, or Earth's weather. Sergeant Bae Hyunwoo, a survival expert who had joined their unit, had taught them how to use the jungle itself as a weapon. They coated their gear in mud and plant material, breaking up their heat signatures and scent. They moved like ghosts, using animal trails and natural cover that the aliens did not understand. The coalition of special forces from across Asia had grown rapidly. Vietnamese rangers who had trained in these jungles their whole lives. Thai commandos who knew every poisonous plant and dangerous animal. Indonesian fighters who could navigate swamps the aliens could not cross. Filipino scouts who could climb trees the aliens could not even see. They shared knowledge, tactics, and began to fight back in ways the Valkyran had never encountered. In Burma, a team led by a Vietnamese ranger named Nguyen set a trap that would become legendary. They tracked an alien patrol to a river crossing. During the night, they relocated a tiger from upstream and drove it toward the alien position using carefully placed scents and sounds. The Valkyran soldiers, already jumpy from days in the jungle, saw the massive predator charge out of the darkness. They panicked. Their disciplined formation broke apart as soldiers fired wildly in all directions. The tiger, terrified by the noise and lights, ran straight through their camp and disappeared. But the damage was done. In their panic, the aliens had fired on each other. Their heavy weapons had destroyed their own equipment. By the time officers restored order, 3 soldiers were wounded by friendly fire, and their communication equipment was destroyed. The humans never fired a shot. They simply watched and learned. "Did you see that?" one of the Thai commandos said, laughing quietly. "They are more afraid of our animals than of us. Then let us give them more animals to fear," Nguyen replied. The tactics spread. Teams across Southeast Asia began using the jungle's natural dangers against the invaders. They would not attack directly. Instead, they would guide danger toward the aliens and watch them destroy themselves. But Captain Tiemann knew they needed to do more than just harass patrols. They needed to strike a real blow. That opportunity came during a storm. The monsoon hit the region with terrible force. Rain fell in solid sheets, flooding trails and turning the jungle floor into rivers of mud. The Valkyran forces tried to shelter, their equipment failing one system at a time. Tiemann's team moved through the storm as if it was normal weather. They had trained in these conditions. Their simple equipment did not fail when wet. They used the rain and thunder to mask their approach. Minji set up her position on a hillside overlooking a Valkyran command post. The rain made the shot nearly impossible, but she had made impossible shots before. She calculated wind, rain angle, and distance. 800 meters through a storm dot, she waited. Lightning flashed, and in that brief moment of light, she saw her target, a Valkyran officer giving orders to his troops. She breathed out slowly. Thunder crashed across the jungle. In that exact moment, Minji fired. The bullet crossed the distance in silence, hidden by nature's noise. The Velkaran officer fell. She adjusted, found her second target. Another flash of lightning. Another thunder crash. Another shot. Another officer downed. By the time the aliens realized they were under attack, Minji had eliminated 3 of their commanders from 800 meters away. They never saw where the shots came from. They fired blindly into the jungle, their energy weapons lighting up the rain but hitting nothing but trees. Taman's team was already gone, disappearing into the storm like ghosts. That night marked the first Velkaran retreat. An entire company, 200 soldiers, pulled out of the Burmese jungle. Their last transmission before they lost communication was filled with terror. There are ghosts in the green. They are everywhere and nowhere. We cannot fight what we cannot see. Requesting immediate extraction. In his command ship, Thelvex watched the reports with growing anger. Ground teams were reporting equipment failures, communication breakdowns, and mysterious attacks that killed officers without warning. His soldiers were calling the jungles green hells and refusing to patrol without heavy support. "This is unacceptable," Thelvex roared. "They are primitives hiding in weeds. Send in the Crimson Blades. I want those jungles cleared and every human in them dead within a week." The Crimson Blades were the elite of the Velkaran military. Genetically enhanced soldiers wearing the most advanced armor in the Empire. They had never failed a mission. They were the hunters that other species feared. They would be landing in the Amazon within 2 days. In their bunker, Captain Taman received the intelligence report. Choi Yuna had intercepted the Velkaran communications about the Crimson Blades deployment. "They are sending their best," Yuna said quietly. Taman looked at his team. Minji was cleaning her rifle. Diane was preparing new explosive devices. Hyunwoo was studying maps of the Amazon. They all looked tired but determined. "Good," Taman said. "Then we will show their best what Earth's jungles can really do." The message went out to all Special Forces teams. "Elite enemy units incoming. Prepare for serious combat." The jungle had learned to kill the normal invaders. Now it was time to see if it could kill their champions too. The Crimson Blades landed in the Amazon rainforest with absolute confidence. Their dropships descended through the canopy, tearing through ancient trees like they were paper. Squad leader Velther stepped onto the jungle floor and activated his armor's advanced sensors. "Full scan," he ordered. "Find every human in this sector and eliminate them." His soldiers fanned out in perfect formation. Each one was a genetic masterpiece, enhanced for speed, strength, and combat efficiency. Their armor could survive direct hits from most weapons. Their energy rifles could punch through solid steel. They had wiped out resistance movements on a dozen worlds. The Amazon would be no different. Except Captain Taman and his team were already there. And they had been preparing for a week. The insertion had been difficult. Getting from Korea to South America during an alien invasion was nearly impossible. But Earth's remaining militaries had coordinated. Submarine transports, hidden airfields, and desperate flights through areas the aliens had not yet occupied. Special Forces teams from every continent had converged on the Amazon.ta, crouched in the undergrowth, watching the Crimson Blades through his scope. These aliens moved differently than the regular troops. They were faster, more alert, and their equipment was clearly superior. This would not be easy. "Yuna, can you access their communications?" He whispered into his radio. From her hidden position 200 meters away, Choi Yuna worked frantically on her portable hacking equipment. The Crimson Blades used encrypted channels, but every system had weaknesses. She had been studying Velkaran technology for weeks now, learning from captured equipment. "I am in," she said quietly. "I can hear them, but I cannot send false signals yet. Their encryption is stronger." "Keep working on it," Taman replied. Minji, Doyan, are you in position? Ready, Minji confirmed from her sniper nest high in a massive tree. Charges set, Doyan added. He had spent 3 days preparing this section of jungle, hiding explosives in hollow trees, under roots, and along every path the aliens might take. The crimson blades moved deeper into the forest. Belther was confident. His sensors showed no human heat signatures, no electronic devices, nothing but jungle wildlife. The humans were clearly afraid of his elite unit and had fled. Command, this is Crimson Leader, he reported. No contact with enemy forces. They are avoiding us. Beginning pursuit. What Velther did not know was that his sensors were working perfectly. The humans had no electronics turned on. Their bodies were covered in cooling mud that masked their heat. They were invisible to his technology because they were not using technology. They are splitting up, Yuna reported, watching the alien movements through the intercepted communications. 3 squads, moving in different directions. Perfect, Teeman said. Let them spread out. Diane, which squad is entering your kill zone? The Eastern Squad, 5 soldiers, heading straight for the Hollow Grove. Taemin made the decision. Wait until they are all inside the grove. Minji, when Doyeon triggers the explosives, take out any survivors. Everyone else remain hidden. We hit them once, then disappear. The Eastern Squad of Crimson Blades walked confidently through the trees. They were looking for hiding humans, never suspecting that death was built into the forest itself. The trees around them looked normal, huge, ancient, solid. They were not. Daeun had carefully hollowed out supporting trunks and filled them with captured Velkaran explosive materials. The aliens' own technology turned against them. The 5 soldiers reached the center of the grove. Daeun took a deep breath and pressed the detonator. The jungle exploded. Not with fire or noise that could be traced, but with massive trees suddenly collapsing inward. The hollowed trunks, no longer able to support their own weight, fell simultaneously. Tons of wood crashed down on the Crimson Blades from every direction. Their armor was strong, but it could not hold up an entire forest. 3 soldiers were crushed instantly, their enhanced bodies no match for the weight of ancient trees. One managed to activate his shield, protecting himself from the initial collapse. But then the canopy above fell too, branches, vines, and more trunks burying him alive. The last soldier stumbled out of the destruction. His armor cracked, his shields failing. He looked around wildly, trying to find the enemy. He never saw Minji. Her shot came from 400 meters away, punching through his damaged helmet with perfect accuracy. He fell without making a sound. Eastern Squad is gone, Teeman reported calmly. All units, fade back. Move to secondary positions. By the time Velther and the other Crimson Blades reached the grove, the humans were gone. All that remained was devastation, crushed armor, broken bodies, and a forest that seemed to have killed his elite soldiers by itself. How? One of his soldiers asked, staring at the scene. Velther examined the hollow trees. The careful placement of explosives, the perfect timing required to collapse everything at once. These were not the actions of primitives. This was sophisticated warfare adapted to an environment his people did not understand. They are using the jungle against us, he said slowly. Call back all squads. We need to regroup, and his communication system suddenly filled with static. Then a voice speaking in broken Velkan language. East position compromised. Crimson forces retreating. Regroup at landing zone immediately. It was Yuna. She had finally broken their encryption and was now sending false orders through their own network. Belay that order. Velther shouted. All squads, ignore the last transmission. Hold your positions. But the damage was done. 2 squads, hearing the false retreat order, began moving back toward the landing zone. They were now separated from the main force, moving through unfamiliar jungle, following coordinates that would lead them into carefully prepared ambush sites. The northern squad walked directly into a swamp that Indonesian fighters had marked with false paths. The safe-looking ground gave way beneath their heavy armor, plunging them into thick mud and water. As they struggled, Vietnamese rangers attacked from solid ground, using captured alien weapons to punch through their armor at point-blank range. The western squad followed coordinates that led them through a narrow valley. They did not notice the Thai commandos hidden on the ridges above until rocks and logs began raining down on them. Ancient warfare tactics, thousands of years old, used against space-age soldiers. In his command ship, Thelvex watched in horror as the life signs of his elite unit blinked out one by one on his display. The Crimson Blades, his perfect soldiers, were being destroyed by humans who should not have been able to touch them. How are they doing this? He demanded. The Crimson Blades have conquered fortified cities. They have broken armies that outnumbered them 100 to 1. How are jungle primitives killing them? Lieutenant Nam Soo-yuk, an intelligence officer working in an allied command bunker, had been studying the captured alien equipment and battle reports for weeks. He understood now what the Vulcan did not. They rely completely on their technology, he explained to the other officers. Their soldiers cannot navigate without GPS systems. They cannot fight without powered armor. They cannot track enemies without sensors. Strip away their tools, and they are helpless. They have forgotten how to fight with just their eyes, ears, and instincts. And we never forgot, General Han said with grim satisfaction. Because we never had tools good enough for forget. Back in the Amazon, the surviving Crimson Blades gathered at their landing zone. Of the 30 elite soldiers who had entered the jungle, only 9 remained. They huddled together, their sensors useless, their communication compromised. Surrounded by a jungle that had somehow learned to kill them, Velther stared into the green darkness. Somewhere out there, the humans were watching. He could feel their eyes on him, even though his sensors showed nothing. "Extract us," he said quietly into his radio. "The mission has failed. This planet, it fights back in ways we never imagined." As the extraction ships descended, Captain Tiemann and his team watched from the shadows. They had lost 3 fighters in the battle. Good people who had sacrificed everything to defend their world. But they had proven something important. "The jungle is learning," Minji said softly. "No," Tiemann replied. "The jungle always knew how to kill. We just taught the aliens to fear it." Across the world, news of the Crimson Blade's defeat spread through the resistance. If the elite could be beaten, then the regular forces stood no chance in Earth's wild places. The aliens controlled the cities and open ground. But everywhere there were trees, mountains, or thick vegetation, humanity was winning. The Vulcaran Empire, for the first time in its existence, began to doubt itself. The news of the Special Forces' victories spread across Earth like wildfire. In occupied cities, people whispered about the jungle fighters who were making the aliens bleed. In hidden refugee camps, survivors shared stories of alien patrols that entered the forests and never came out. Hope, which had seemed dead when the Vulcaran arrived, began to grow again. In London, resistance fighters in the subway tunnels started using guerrilla tactics inspired by the jungle teams. In Moscow, urban soldiers created ambush points in the ruins of bomb buildings. Farmers in the countryside sabotaged alien harvesting equipment with simple tools. Even children helped by reporting alien movements to hidden radio operators. The Vulcaran had conquered the obvious targets. But Earth was fighting back from every shadow, every hidden corner, every place their sensors could not reach. Thelvex watched the rebellion grow with increasing fury. His perfect invasion was falling apart. Ground forces requested constant reinforcements. Supply lines were being attacked by humans who appeared from nowhere. The jungle regions were now complete no-go zones, marked in red on every tactical map. "We need to eliminate their advantage," he told his remaining commanders. "If the forests give them power, then we destroy the forests." The atmospheric bombers were enormous ships designed for orbital bombardment and large-scale environmental modification. Thelvex had not wanted to use them. They were expensive, and the resources of Earth were supposed to be conquered intact, not destroyed. But he was running out of options. "Deploy the defoliation weapons," he ordered. "Start with Southeast Asia. Burn away the canopy. Remove their hiding places. Force them to fight in the open where we can use our superior firepower." The bombers launched from the orbital carrier, stationed above Southeast Asia. Each ship carried enough chemical weapons to strip vegetation from hundreds of square kilometers. Once they completed their mission, the jungle fighters would have nowhere to hide. In the command bunker, alarms began blaring. Satellite tracking showed the massive bomber ships descending into the atmosphere. If they reached their targets, millions of hectares of forest would be destroyed, along with everyone hiding in them. "We need to stop those bombers," General Han said urgently. "But we have no aircraft capable of reaching them, and no anti-air systems that can target something at that altitude." Lieutenant Nam Soo-yuk had been studying the Velkaran fleet composition for weeks. "The bombers are launching from an orbital carrier," he said, pointing at the satellite images. "If we could disable the carrier, it would fall from orbit. The bombers would have nowhere to return, and they would be forced to abort their mission." "How do you propose we reach an orbital carrier?" another officer asked. "We have no spacecraft." "We have their spacecraft," Soo-yuk replied. "We have captured 3 Velkaran shuttles intact. They are small, damaged, but functional." Captain Teeman understood immediately. "You want us to infiltrate the carrier using their own shuttles. Sabotage it from inside. It is suicide," Minji said quietly. "Yes," Teeman agreed. "Probably. But if we do nothing, the jungle dies, and everyone in it dies. Those bombers will kill millions." The plan came together quickly because there was no time for detailed planning. They would use the 3 captured shuttles to approach the carrier, pretending to be damaged Velkaran ships requesting docking. Once inside, they would fight their way to the reactor core and plant explosives. Sergeant Kim Ji-won volunteered to lead the assault team. He was a close-quarters combat specialist, the best they had for fighting in tight corridors. Taemin, Minji Doyen, and 6 other operators joined him. It was a small team for a massive ship, but stealth was more important than numbers. The shuttles launched from a hidden base in the Philippines. Yuna had programmed them with Velkaran identification codes and distress signals. As they approached the carrier, she broadcast false damage reports and emergency requests. "Carrier command, this is Transport 7. Engine failure, requesting immediate docking. We have wounded aboard." There was a tense moment of silence. If the Velkaran realized they were human-controlled, the carrier's defensive guns would vaporize them instantly. "Transport 7, you are cleared for emergency dock. May 4. Be quick, we are launching operations." They were in. The massive bay doors opened, and the 3 small shuttles glided into the carrier's hangar. As soon as they touched down, the teams moved. Ji-won led the way, his rifle ready. The corridor outside the hangar was empty. Most of the crew was at battle stations, preparing for the bombing run. They moved fast, following the layout Yuna had reconstructed from stolen data files. "Reactor core is 3 levels down. Center section," Yuna said through their radio. She was not with them. Someone needed to survive to tell Earth what happened. "You have maybe 20 minutes before they realize the shuttles are empty." The team split up to cover more ground. Teeman's group headed for the reactor core. Minji's team secured an escape route. Ji-won's squad would handle any Velkaran soldiers they encountered. They almost made it to the reactor without being detected. Almost. Vulcaran engineering team rounded a corner and came face to face with the humans. For one frozen second, both groups stared at each other in shock. Then, the shooting started. The corridor exploded with energy fire and bullets. The Vulcaran had superior weapons, but the humans had surprise and desperation. G1 moved like a machine, his combat reflexes honed by thousands of hours of training. He dropped two aliens before they could raise their weapons, but the alarm was raised. Throughout the carrier, security teams began mobilizing. Go! Go! G1 shouted. Get to the reactor. We will hold them here. Taemin and Doin ran, leaving G1 and two others to hold the corridor. They could hear the fighting behind them, the sound of energy weapons and return fire. They could not think about it. They had to complete the mission. The reactor room was massive, filled with technology they barely understood. Dion pulled out the explosives they had brought, shaped charges designed to rupture the containment field. He did not need to understand how the reactor worked. He just needed to break it. Setting charges now, he said, his hands working quickly, despite the pain from an injury he had taken during the infiltration. Blood stained his uniform, but he did not stop. 3 minutes to detonation. We need to move. A Vulcaran captain in powered armor burst into the reactor room. He was huge, his armor making him look like a giant. He raised his weapon toward Doyen. Minji's shot took him in the visor, the bullet punching through the armored glass with perfect precision. The captain fell, and she moved forward, providing cover while Doyen finished setting the charges. Done! Doyen gasped. Charges are set. Let's get out of here. They ran back through the corridors. Behind them, they could hear the firefight where G1 was making his last stand. The radio was full of static and screaming. G1, we are moving to extraction. Taemin called. Negative. G1's voice came back, broken and tired. Too many of them. Get to the shuttles. We will. We will buy you time. G1, go! That's an order, Captain. Make this count. The remaining team members reached the hangar just as the explosives detonated. The entire carrier shuddered. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the ship. The containment field around the reactor core had failed, and the massive engines were beginning to tear themselves apart. They threw themselves into the remaining shuttle and launched, blasting out of the hangar as the carrier began its death spiral. Through the viewport, they could see the massive ship starting to tilt, falling toward Earth's atmosphere. The orbital carrier hit the atmosphere like a meteor. The friction heated it to thousands of degrees, breaking it apart piece by piece. The bomber ships, which had been preparing to launch, were forced to abort and scatter. Without the carrier to refuel and rearm them, they could not complete their mission. The massive ship's remains crashed into the Pacific Ocean, sending waves across the entire region. The impact could be felt in Japan, the Philippines, and Australia. Down in the shuttle, Taemin sat in silence. They had won. The jungle was saved. But the cost was terrible. G1 and 4 others had died in the carrier. Good soldiers. Good people. Heroes who would never see Earth's victory. Did we make it count? Diane asked quietly, bandaging his wound. Taemin looked out at Earth below, at the green jungles still standing, still protecting humanity's resistance. Yes, he said. We made it count. Across the Vulcaran fleet, panic spread. The carrier's destruction had been broadcast across all channels. The flagship, the symbol of their power, had been destroyed by a handful of humans using captured equipment and desperate courage. Thelvex stared at his tactical display, watching his command structure begin to fall apart. His subordinates were questioning his orders. His soldiers were refusing to enter certain regions. His officers were suggesting retreat. This is impossible, he whispered. We are the Vulcaran Empire. We have conquered 100 worlds. How is this primitive planet defeating us? No one had an answer. Earth was not winning through superior technology or greater numbers. Earth was winning through terrain, tactics, and warriors who would rather die than surrender their world. And the fighting was not over yet. Thelvex stood alone on his command bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed his empire's failing invasion. Red zones covered the map, areas where his forces could not go, where humans controlled the terrain absolutely. The jungles, the mountains, the forests, all were death traps for Velkaran soldiers. His subordinates had begun questioning him openly. His fleet was fracturing. Supply ships were refusing to land. Ground commanders were abandoning positions without orders. The invasion that should have taken a week had dragged on for months, and they were losing. But Thelvex was not ready to accept defeat. Not yet. All remaining forces will concentrate for one final assault, he announced to his commanders. We will strike at the human capital of Seoul. We will destroy their largest city in Asia and break their spirit. Once they see their cities burning, they will surrender. Commander, with respect, we should withdraw, one of his officers said carefully. We have lost too many. We have lost nothing. Thelvex roared. We are Velkaran. We do not retreat. From primitives. Prepare every ship, every soldier, every weapon. We end this war now. The message was intercepted within minutes. Yuna, working from her monitoring station in the Korean bunker, decoded the Velkaran battle plans and sent them to every Allied command center. They are coming here, General Han said, looking at the reports. Everything they have left. They are going to try to destroy Seoul and break our resistance. Captain Tiemann studied the maps of the Korean peninsula. The mountains, the forests, the terrain he had trained in his entire military career. If the aliens wanted to take Seoul, they would have to come through the most defensible landscape on Earth. Then we will make this their graveyard, he said quietly. The call went out across the entire planet. Every special forces team, every jungle fighter, every resistance unit that could be spared began moving toward Korea. They came by submarine, by hidden transports, by walking through mountains that the aliens could not navigate. Vietnamese rangers, Thai commandos, Filipino scouts, Indonesian fighters, they all converged on the Korean peninsula. Sergeant Bae Hyung-woo coordinated the defensive preparations. Every mountain pass was rigged with explosives. Every forest trail became a kill zone. Every village, every building, every street in Seoul was prepared for urban warfare. They will have numbers and firepower, Hyun-woo explained to the assembled teams. But we have terrain, knowledge, and the will to protect our home. We make them pay for every meter. We make them regret ever coming to our world. Lieutenant Nam So-yuk set up coordination with the civilian militias. Farmers brought hunting rifles and homemade explosives. Factory workers prepared Molotov cocktails and improvised weapons. Elderly people who remembered wars decades past taught young people how to hide, how to sabotage, how to resist. Even the children helped, running messages between resistance cells, carrying supplies through tunnels that were too small for adults. The Velkaran ground invasion began 3 days later. Dropships descended across the peninsula, and armored columns began their march towards Seoul. Thelvex himself came down in his personal command. Walker, a massive 30-meter war machine, armed with plasma cannons powerful enough to level buildings. I will lead them myself, he declared. The humans will see their doom walking toward them, and they will despair. But the humans did not despair. They fought. The first Velkaran column entered a mountain pass and walked directly into Bae Hyung-woo's trap. The mountains themselves seemed to explode as charges detonated simultaneously, bringing down avalanches of rock and dirt. Tons of stone buried hover tanks and crushed soldiers. The survivors tried to retreat, only to find the pass behind them had also collapsed. They were trapped, and the Korean Special Forces moved in to finish them. Another column tried to advance through the forest. Minji and her sniper teams had been waiting for days. They fired from concealed positions, taking out officers and communication specialists. When the Velkin soldiers tried to return fire, they found nothing but empty trees. The snipers had already moved to new positions. In the cities surrounding Seoul, urban fighters turned every building into a fortress. Choi Yuna coordinated the attacks, using hacked Velkarin communications to direct human forces to weak points in the alien formations. When a Velkarin squad entered a building, they found themselves in a maze of blocked corridors and booby traps, fighting defenders who knew every room, every hiding spot. The advance slowed to a crawl. What should have been a quick march became a bloody grind through hostile territory. Thelvex watched in frustration as his forces died by the hundreds. "Push forward," he ordered, "no matter the cost. We must reach Seoul." The Velkarin command walker strode through the battlefield, its weapons destroying everything in its path. Thelvex used it to personally crush resistance positions, proving to his soldiers that victory was possible. Captain Tiemann watched the walker from a hidden observation post. The machine was massive, powerful, and seemingly unstoppable. Its armor was too thick for their weapons, and its shields could deflect anything they fired at it. "We cannot destroy it directly," Tiemann said to his team. "But maybe we do not need to." Kang Doyen, still recovering from his injuries, but refusing to stay behind, studied the walker's movements. "The joints," he said. "The legs have joints where the armor is thinner. If we can damage the legs, the walker will fall." "I cannot make that shot," Minji said, examining the walker through her scope. "The joints are too small, and they are moving constantly. Even for me, it is impossible." "Then we get it to stop moving," Tiemann decided. "Diane, you still have explosives?" "Always." "Then we give that walker a reason to stop." The plan was desperate, but everything about this war had been desperate. They would use the last of their captured alien explosives to create a threat too large for even Thelvex to ignore. They would force him to stop his walker to deal with it, and in that moment, Minji would take her shot. Doyan planted the charges on a fuel depot that the Vulcarin had established. When detonated, the explosion would be massive, visible for kilometers, and hot enough to damage even the walker's shields. They waited until Thelvex brought his walker close, drawn by the promise of crushing a major human strongpoint. Then Diane triggered the explosives. The fuel depot exploded with incredible force. The blast wave shook the ground and sent a pillar of fire into the sky. Even inside his armored walker, Thelvex felt the heat. He stopped the walker to assess the damage, to see what had caused such a massive explosion. That was his mistake. Minji had been waiting for 1,200 meters away, her rifle steady despite the exhaustion, the hunger, and the wounds she had taken over months of fighting. She had one bullet left, one chance. The shot was impossible. Through smoke, through heat distortion, at a target the size of a fist on a moving war machine. But she had made impossible shots before. She breathed out slowly. The world narrowed to just her rifle, and the distant walker. She calculated every variable: wind, gravity, the curve of the earth itself over that distance. She fired. The bullet crossed 1,200 meters in less than 2 seconds. It passed through smoke and fire, riding the shock waves from the explosion. It struck the walker's knee joint where the armor plates met, in a gap barely wide enough to fit a coin. The joint exploded. The massive leg buckled. Thelvex felt his walker tilting, falling, crashing to the ground with earth-shaking force. He tried to open the cockpit, to escape the dying machine. But Minji's second shot, she had saved one more bullet, hidden in her boot, caught him as he emerged. The commander of the Velkan invasion fell from his walker and did not rise again. Across the battlefield, Velkaran soldiers saw their leader fall. They saw the unstoppable walker destroyed. They saw that even their greatest weapons and their strongest leaders could be defeated by these humans who refused to surrender. The retreat began immediately. Not ordered, not coordinated, but driven by pure survival instinct. The Velkaran forces broke and ran, trying to reach their ships, desperate to escape the planet that had become their nightmare. The fleet in orbit began its withdrawal, without Thelvex to hold them together. The remaining commanders made the only logical choice. Earth had proven unconquerable. The cost of victory would be the entire fleet. Captain Tiemann stood on Bukanzan Mountain, watching the alien ships flee into the stars. Around him, the city of Seoul still stood, battered, burned, but standing. The Korean flag still flew over the capital. His team gathered around him. Minji, her rifle finally empty. Diane, wounded but alive. Yuna, exhausted from days of constant work. Hyunwoo, covered in mud and dirt. Nam Soo-yuk, coordinating the final cleanup operations. They were covered in the evidence of months of brutal warfare, mud, blood, and the green stains of Earth's jungles that had hidden them and protected them. Is it over? Yuna asked quietly. Tiemann watched the last alien ship disappear beyond the atmosphere. For now, he said, they will remember what happened here. They will tell other species about the planet that fought back, about the world that defeated an empire. Minji looked out over the mountains and forests that had been their battlefield. And if they come back? Tiemann smiled grimly. Then the jungle will be waiting. The mountains will remember. And we will teach them again that Earth does not surrender. Across the planet, similar scenes played out.